Okay, in this video I want to talk about the 7 big special Maclaurin series that we need to have memorized. And I'll talk about a way that might be easiest to memorize them as well as some memorization techniques for these particular ones. I'm going to begin this 7 with the 2 that are found in unique ways. These 2 can actually be found in 2 different ways. That's 1 over 1 minus x. And these are the 2 that can be found using long division. That can also be found using the typical way that we find Maclaurin series. And remember, for these, when you have the minus sign in them, it's going to be an all positive. When you have a positive, it's going to be alternating. Now, if you need to, you can go back to the first few terms, either by long division or by the normal process for finding a Maclaurin series to see which one will be positive or not. But it's the opposites here. When it's minus, it's going to be all positives. When it's positives, it's going to be alternating. And these are the only 2 that are also geometric series. So they both look very similar. They start with 1 plus x squared plus x to the third plus x to the fourth. Then for the general term, we're always going to start with the first term being the 0th term. So you can see from this that you have the nth term corresponds with the exponent of x, and so the general term is just x to the nth. The next one is going to be alternating, but the same exact terms. And so it's 1 minus x plus x squared minus x cubed plus x to the fourth. And then the general term is negative x quantity to the nth power. Then the third one that I'm going to use is e to the x. If you recall, for e to the x, all of the derivatives are e to the x. And so e of 0 is e to the 0 is always going to be 1. And if you look at our formula, that means that it's always going to be x to the n over n factorial. Right? And so that's the third one. 1 plus x squared over 2 factorial plus x to the third over 3 factorial. It's very similar to the f of x is 1 over 1 minus x, except you're dividing by all the factorials as well. The next one that I would add would be the f of x is ln of 1 plus x. And since you remember that the first term in the Maclaurin series is f of 0 in this case would be ln of 1, which is 0. Its first derivative would be 1 over 1 plus x, and at 0 that's 1. This tells you that the first term is going to be 1x. Now this is an alternating series. After the first term, it looks much like e to the x, only the denominators are not factorials. Now in the books, when it gives the general term, it starts this series at n equals 1, but I don't see any reason to do that, to change from what we're doing with all the others. I'm going to start it at n equals 0. And so you can see that the exponent is always 1 more than the value of n, and the denominator is 1 more than the value of n. And until somebody can show me why I should change from using n equals 0 to n equals 1, I am going to continue using n equals 0. None of the books that I've seen mention why they do that. Alright, so that's 4. Next I'm going to do the sign. And just like sine of x is an odd function, all the terms in the series are odd powered. Again, if we look at the terms there, the exponents and the factorials in the denominator are always 2n plus 1. And so that gives us our general term. Now for the next one, instead of doing the cosine, I'm going to do the tangent inverse. Now the reason I do this next is because it follows right after the sine, except that the denominators do not have factorial. And the last one is going to be the cosine, and the cosine being, just as it's an even function, has all even powered terms. And remember that the first term is f of 0, and cosine of 0 is 1, so this one starts with 1. And so there are some strategies for memorizing the big 7. I would memorize them in this order using those particular strategies. We talk about how to generate these in other places. Just memorizing them alone is not enough. You really need to understand what's happening there. But just understanding is also not going to help you to memorize them. So this video is specifically about a strategy to memorize these big 7. And I hope that's helpful.